Everyone froze. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Glasses halted halfway to lips. The grand ballroom, filled with the city's most powerful and wealthy, turned silent as a young woman in a simple dress wrapped her arms tightly around the coldest, most untouchable man in the country, a millionaire known not just for his fortune, but for his icy heart. Her name was Elena, and she hadn't planned it. She hadn't thought. She hadn't realized that in that single desperate moment of weakness, she would step into the storm of judgment, ridicule, and something she never expected: his piercing, unreadable gaze. The man she hugged was Alexander Kane, the billionaire people whispered about in fear. He was known for shutting down companies overnight, for firing thousands without blinking, for building his empire with ruthless efficiency. He was a man with no patience for mistakes, no tolerance for emotions, and certainly no room for something as simple as human warmth. And yet, she had hugged him. Elena had only been a waitress hired for the evening. She wasn't meant to stand out. She wasn't meant to draw attention. But when she saw him standing alone, shoulders heavy though his face was stone, something inside her cracked. He looked so devastatingly alone, so unreachable, so broken, that her heart moved before her mind could stop it. Her arms went around him. Gasps filled the room. People muttered. A few laughed cruelly. "Elena, what are you doing?" her friend hissed from the corner, horrified. But by then it was too late. Alexander Kane had turned, his steel-gray eyes meeting hers, filled with a mixture of shock, cold fury, and something else she couldn't name. He didn't push her away. He didn't return the hug either. He simply stood there, rigid as marble, while the world around them watched. Then, in a voice so cold it sent chills through her veins, he asked, "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" By the next morning, Elena's life was in ruins. Photos of her hugging him spread across social media like wildfire. She was mocked endlessly. Some called her an opportunist, others a fool. Her small job at the cafe vanished within hours. Customers stopped coming, her boss fired her, unwilling to deal with the attention. Her world crumbled. But the worst part wasn't the gossip, the job loss, or the stares on the street. It was the summons she received just 3 days later. A black car pulled up outside her tiny apartment, and a man in a suit handed her a letter. Inside, written with icy precision, were 5 words: "Report to my office. AK. Elena thought her knees would give out when she stood before Alexander Kane in his glass-walled skyscraper office. He sat behind his desk, silent, unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "You embarrassed me in front of the most powerful people in the city. Do you realize the damage you caused?" Her voice trembled, but she managed to whisper, "I didn't mean to. You looked like you needed someone." The room went dead silent. For a moment, she thought she had signed her own death warrant. But then, something flickered across his expression. A crack. A shadow. A memory. And instead of firing her, suing her, or destroying her like he could have, Alexander Kane did something unexpected. He offered her a job. It wasn't an ordinary job. "You will work for me. Personal assistant. You'll learn what control means. You'll learn discipline. And you will repay me for the embarrassment you caused." Elena wanted to refuse, but she couldn't. She needed the money. She needed a chance to rebuild. So she accepted. But what she didn't know was that this mistake, the hug, the humiliation, the forced job would unravel both of their lives in ways neither of them imagined. Dash. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Alexander Kane was as cold as everyone said. He barked orders. He never smiled. He never allowed anyone close. But Elena noticed things others didn't, the way his hands sometimes shook when he thought no one was looking. The way his eyes lingered on old photographs tucked secretly in his drawer. The way silence seemed to crush him at night when the office emptied. Bit by bit, she saw the man behind the walls. And bit by bit, he saw her too. Elena was different. She didn't chase money. She didn't bow to him in fear. She challenged him, questioned him, even argued when she knew she was right. Where others saw a ruthless giant, she saw a man who had been broken by betrayal, loss, and loneliness. And in her presence, Alexander Kane began to change. But not everyone was pleased. Business partners mocked him. Society whispered. The coldest millionaire is melting because of a girl who doesn't even belong in his world. The board of his company threatened to remove him, claiming he was distracted, weak. And Elena, she was torn. She had never intended for any of this. She only wanted to help, to give warmth to a man who had forgotten it. But now she had become the center of a storm that could destroy everything he built and ruin her life completely. One evening, when the pressure became unbearable, she confronted him. "You don't need me, Alexander. You need someone like you, strong, untouchable. I was wrong to hug you that night. I was wrong to step into your life." He looked at her, eyes burning, and for the first time, his voice broke. "You were the only one who was ever right to. In that moment, Elena understood. His coldness had never been strength. It had been armor. Armor built from years of betrayal, loss, and the fear of being vulnerable again. And her single, reckless hug that mistake everyone mocked was the first blow that cracked it. Their bond deepened. Not suddenly. Not like a fairy tale. But slowly, through trust, respect, and the courage to stand by each other when the world turned against them. Alexander Kane didn't just change his ways, he changed his empire. He began using his wealth to build, not destroy, to create, not crush. And at his side was the very girl who had once embarrassed him in front of the entire city. Years later, when people spoke of him, they no longer called him the coldest millionaire. They spoke of him as a man who had found his heart again. And it all began with her mistake. Her arms, wrapped around him in front of everyone. A hug that shattered his walls, changed her life, and proved to the world that sometimes, the greatest transformations come from the smallest, most reckless acts of kindness. Sparkle's message: never underestimate the power of compassion. A simple gesture, even one made in mistake, can break walls that money, power, or status never could. Would you like me to structure this into clear timed sections with cliffhangers at intervals so it perfectly fits a 55-minute YouTube storytelling format?